In the days and months following Donald Trump's presidential re-election defeat, several American election officials were subjected to threats and an intense pressure campaign by the outgoing president, desperate to stay in power. Perhaps none more so than Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. In his new book, Integrity Counts, he explains his experiences and just how close our democracy came to being dismantled. And he joins me now. Mr. Raffensperger, thank you very much for being here. You did step into history when President Trump attacked you after the election and asked you to change the results. You said no, and your book includes a transcript of that, hour-long plus phone call you had with President Trump. You took that call to include threats from him. How so?
That was something that I think our office and I was well prepared for. In fact, when I stepped into the office in January 2019, we had the first thing was Stacey Abrams had about 9 lawsuits about that question of a stolen election claim concept that she had. It wasn't based on the truth, which was voter suppression. In 2020, it was voter fraud. Now they were based on the truth. And so we knew we had the facts on our side. And so I just needed to continue politely, respectfully, let the president know that he did lose the election and this is why. So we gave him data points and explained to him that all the data he had was just wrong.
What you say in the book is that you took what he said as threatening to prosecute you. I mean, the president essentially was asking you to break the law.
Asking us to find 11,800 votes, and there weren't 11,800 votes to find. They just weren't there. You know, he said that there was 5,000 dead people. There was less than 5. He said that there was, thousands of felons that voted. There's less than 74. It just went down the line. He said there was underage voters, 66,000. There was 0. There was no underage voting in Georgia. And so we had the data. And this calmly, factually, I laid that out. And that's what I do in my book, Integrity Counts. So people finally get the truth for the very first time.
You and every one of the Republicans who stood up for integrity, the title of your book, who denied that the election was fraudulent, and the Republicans who have opposed the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, every one of you is now either facing being primaried by a Republican supported by President Trump, or is leaving office, leaving politics altogether. And I could name Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and others. What's happened to this Republican Party? This is now the party of Donald Trump.
My reelection, I'm going to stand on the truth. I have truth on my side, and so I know that integrity counts. And I'm just going to lean into the goodness of the average American, the average Republican voter that are good, upstanding citizens. And that's why I wrote the book, so they have all the facts. I know those are the cold, hard, it's the brutal truth. But President Trump came up short in Georgia.
And my point is that the Republican Party is now turning against you and others who refuse to do what President Trump asked. But I want to ask you about the law that Georgia passed after the election, sweeping new set of election laws. If the election was fair, which you argue that it was, why was it necessary to institute a whole new set of election laws in Georgia?
Well, number one, the best thing I believe that we did with SB 202 is we moved away from signature match, which is subjective. In fact, I said in 2018, we needed to go to photo ID for absentee voting like we have for in-person voting. And finally, General Assembly did that this year. We'd been sued by both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party over signature match. They said it's subjective. I agree. And so now we've gone to an objective measure, which is driver's license number and birthday, day, month, year. This is something they've been doing in Minnesota for over 10 years now, and Texas has copied us and going to do the same thing. It's really a nonpartisan, bipartisan, it's an objective measure. And I think objective measures make a lot more sense and really help restore voter confidence, and there'll be less squabbling afterwards when it's done by objective measures.
And what about for those individuals who have to work long hours, have to work late shifts, may not have a driver's license? Why not make it easier for them to vote rather than much harder?
We've had photo ID for in-person voting now for over 10 years, and studies have come out and they've showed that neither Democrat or Republicans or any demographic group are hurt by photo ID. And actually, both parties and all demographic groups support it because they understand it helps ensure that you know who that is that's showing up to vote when they use photo ID. So we've incorporated that with the signature match moving away, and now all absentee voting will be with driver's license. It's very good, and we've actually increased the number of early voting days from 16 up to 17. That includes 2 Sundays, and then any county that needs to have it can have, at their choice, 2 days of Sunday voting. That's 19 days. That's more than New York, New Jersey, and Delaware.
I want to ask you about another couple of provisions of that new Georgia law, Mr. Raffensperger. One, of course, as you know, has to do with not allowing food or drink to be provided to people who are standing in line. We know that sometimes in Georgia, in some parts of the state, in some counties, precincts, long lines are necessary because of timing, because of where people work, what their availability is. How do you explain that it's wrong to give people a bottle of water or a snack if they are standing in a long line? And we know this in particular will be affecting voters of color, African American.
Well, number one, we also put in SB 202 that all lines need to be shorter than 1 hour. And if they are longer than an hour, next election doesn't solve the problem of that election, but next election you have to bust that precinct in half, or you have to add additional equipment. That's a good accountability measure. But last November, the average wait time was 3 minutes in the afternoon, and the longest wait time I saw on our board that we were following was 50 minutes. So we've already worked hard with the counties to defeat that issue. But also we have had, for time immemorial, a no politicking, no electioneering rule of 150 foot within that 150 foot zone. So outside of 150 foot, then if you want to give people water or something like that, then you're allowed to do that. It's just within that 150 foot zone, it's no politicking, no electioneering. And states all have that. They have different zones. Some have 150, some have 100, some have 125. But that's standard operating practice in election.
And my understanding is that in very few states is this the practice. And so it just seems to be singling out those voters who may have difficulty getting to the polls and who may have to stand in line for a long time.
Well, like I said, we have up to 19 days in our large metro population centers. And so that's 19 days of early voting. And then we have no excuse absentee voting for everyone.
We're going to leave it there. Brad Raffensperger, who is Georgia's Secretary of State, out with a new book, Integrity Counts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.